when you think about our journey and how we have been evolving, I guess, over the last 10 years, this journey is going to take us down a lot of different roads. And I would like to say that, you know, some of our secret sauce, if you will, of what makes this journey good for me, I'm still excited about it, and I'm still hopeful that we're going in the right direction, is really the people that I work with and the physician leadership. If we didn't have the physician leadership that we've had since I've been here, but really it goes back 40 years, I don't think that a practice can transform as effectively, because there would just be too much probably negative tension that would be there. But I think you have to manage through that, and this is a change management process, so you have to learn how to lead in a changing environment. And so without that leadership, and I'll say both administratively and clinically, in all levels of an organization, even if you're a small office, if you don't have people that are working effectively together and understand the why of what they're trying to achieve and where they're trying to go, I think transforming a practice would be a bit challenging. Of course, you've got to get paid for it too, and so you've got to be in a community or working with payers that are funding the transformation. I would never recommend at this point in time, given where we are as an industry, that you transform for free, if you will. I think there's too many insurance companies out there that are taking advantage of that in some respects. And so when, one piece of advice that I would say, if you start your transformation process and your workflows, and one payer is paying for some of that work and another payer is not, you're kind of in a challenge, and you've got to kind of sit back and make sure that you decide, is it worth it to standardize that, whatever that example might be, and give it away for free, or to potentially, the best tactic with that would be you would drop the insurance and play hardball. I know that's not always easy. I know that's not always a decision that you can make, but we learned a couple hard times where we were starting to do proactive phone calls, like for gaps in care, and we started calling all the patients, not just the payers that were paying us to call. And I think you realize that the funding sources are going to dry up fast if you do that. So I would give that recommendation. So it's really leadership, making sure that you've got a good funding source, that you engage your employees in this journey, and you make sure that they understand why change management is so important in healthcare, and then really starting to educate and help your patients understand what we're in and what we're trying to achieve. And I think having them as part of the journey, like we said, having a patient advisory committee, I think is really important. What else would you add?
Well, I think a perspective I would have is around trying to remain independent. Goes back to our experience between 1998 and 2001, when we actually were owned by a healthcare system in our region. And during that time, I'm just going to be very honest, we realized that we knew more about running a primary care practice and taking care of patients in the outpatient setting than the hospital system did. They were great at the hospital, not so great in our environment or our world. So I think that we have realized from that experience that our ability to make change in our practices, our ability to do things that we think are going to be better for our patients, which just reinforced once we were back on our own, which we've now been for 17 years. So I think it's a very individual decision that practices have to make, is how much day-to-day decision making do you feel you need in running your practice? And if you have a high need for that, then look at every way possible to stay independent, whether it's partnering with independent practice physician groups, whether it's becoming a direct primary care practice, trying to figure out what works best for you in your environment that's going to make you happy and enjoy coming to work every day and taking care of your patients. You need to pursue those options in your environment. Now, that said, I know a lot of my colleagues who have moved to bigger health systems as employed physicians who are very happy to say, now I don't have to worry about all the things I worried about when I was in independent practice. I'm getting a fair wage, I still take good care of patients, and the other things that used to aggravate me about running a business are no longer my worry. So at the end of the day, I think it becomes a very personal decision as a physician as to which path makes most sense for you. And I think for us, we've been very fortunate. As Lori mentioned, it's been the physician leadership. I think it's been our culture as a group of 50 shareholders. I think the fact that we're in a community where we have an incredibly good reputation, both with patients, the hospitals, and the payers, that has given us the motivation and leeway to continue to be independent as long as we have. Again, what the future holds with the changes going on in healthcare, I think that's going to be much more difficult going forward. But we plan to ride this wave as long as we can.